All right, Alexander, let's talk about Orban taking on Ursula, or Ursula taking on Viktor Orban. And quite a display at the EU. Was it at the EU Parliament? Yeah, a
Yeah,
couple of days ago,
yeah,
with Ursula blasting Orban. How dare Orban decide who he gives visas to and who enters Hungary? How dare he? This is an attack on EU sovereignty. It's incredible that Ursula uses words like EU sovereignty
yeah.
and stuff like that, as if the European Union is a country. But she took on Orban, and Orban demolished Ursula
Yeah.
in his reply,
Yeah.
basically saying that the EU talks about democracy when democracy in the European Union is a sham. That's pretty much what Orban told Ursula. But let's discuss this, because it does seem as if Orban and the people aligned with Orban, say Fico and other people that are aligned with Orban, are gaining strength, while Ursula and her factions, her supporters, are losing strength. And a lot of this comes down to Project Ukraine. Ursula got it disastrously wrong.
Yeah.
She really, really messed up when it came to Project Ukraine, and Orban got it right.
Absolutely. And I think you can start to see that Ursula, despite all the bluster, is becoming increasingly nervous and worried, because the speech that she gave at the European Parliament, this extraordinary attack that she made on Orban, if you actually take a step back and think about what she said, it is incredibly defensive. She says, who are you to criticize the invaded, for her, in other words, the Ukrainians? Who are you to protect and support Putin? A personal attack on an EU leader, an increasingly widely supported EU leader, made at a time when political parties that basically agree with him are winning election after election. They gained major ground in the European Parliament. They've gained strength in Germany, in France, now in Austria. She's also aware of the deepening economic crisis that Europe is in. We're now getting more reports from Germany. It looks as if Germany is now heading not just into a recession, but into a very, very steep recession. Before we did this program, I sent you an article in the London Times from Ian Martin, a very, very well-known commentator here. He talks about deindustrialization in Germany. Just to remind everybody, if you went back to February 2022, it was we on this channel who first said that would happen, that, when Germany suspended the operation of Nord Stream 2, we said this is going to lead to Germany's deindustrialization. Now, the London Times, one of its most mainstream commentators, is talking about this. We have an economic crisis in Europe. We have a report from Mario Draghi, which basically says that Europe needs to change fundamentally. But of course, there's no real way in which Europe can change fundamentally. Doing that would put into jeopardy the entire EU project. So Ursula, I think she's sensing, exactly as you said, that support amongst the people of Europe, even amongst the political forces in Europe, is starting to ebb away. And she went after Orban, who the European political class have identified as their major villain. And Orban just pushed back, and as you correctly said, he obliterated her. But we're going to see more of these battles over the next couple of months. We're going to see a major attack on Orban now, attempts to isolate him in Europe. Very difficult to see how that's going to happen. There's some reports that Meloni and Orban are in the process of making up, just to say. Fico is talking about how he might even be prepared to go to Moscow. Rebellion on every side. and Ursula herself packing the commission with people from the Baltic states and Scandinavia, loyalists trying to sort of, protect herself. Even as one senses that she realizes that Project Ukraine is failing, the Americans are walking away, ideas for loans for Ukraine are are facing stony ground, and nothing is going according to plan.
Yeah. Do we get any recognition for the term deindustrialization? You came up with that term.
I haven't seen a single
No.
place.
That was our term.
It was our term. I haven't seen a single.
Anyway.
We did. We said it. We
aside,
said it. We said it with the both
Yeah.
of it. I mean, we actually had a discussion about it. Oh, it was the day
Yeah,
after
we've
Scholz
done videos
announced.
about it. Yeah.
Absolutely, we did a video about it the day after Scholz announced that he'd suspended the operation of Nord Stream 2. Well, that was when we first said it.
Great.
And as I said, I haven't seen anybody else ever acknowledge the fact that we.
Yeah, great term.
Them.
Great term.
But
That came out around the same time as the sanctions escalation escalator.
Escalator,
Another great term. But okay, all jokes aside. Let's get back to geopolitics. Meloni. Yeah. What a disgrace, Meloni. She chose the losing side.
Yes.
She was aligned with Orban. Orban was actually a type of mentor for her in the European Union. And she was very close to Orban. And then she betrayed Orban. She turned her back on Orban. And she decided to align herself with Ursula. What a mistake that was. That shows that Meloni's judgment is extremely poor. But who knows? Maybe she'll realign back with Orban. So my thinking is that this is going to be the fight for the future of the European Union, or
Yes.
what the European Union will be.
Yes.
Will it be something along the lines of the vision of Orban, or will it be something along the lines of the vision of Ursula, which would be a more centralized, much more authoritarian, but also bankrupt European Union? And they're going to go after Orban hard. I wonder if Orban realizes how hard they're going to go after him, and if he's prepared to hit back. I mean, now he's gaining strength, and I think he can hit back at the powers in Brussels. But they're going to go after Orban. They're going to try to remove him from office. They're going to try to regime change him. They're going to try to put together umbrella coalitions in the next election. They've already got the guy picked out. It's this guy Peter Magyar, who has already gained quite a lot of support. He actually did very well in the European Parliament elections. But he's the guy that the EU is setting up to remove Orban, and if he does remove Orban, then he'll move Hungary right back into place under Ursula's thumb. So what do you think of how things are shaping up? Does Orban realize the battle that lies ahead and the fact that momentum is with him?
Absolutely, he does. I don't think there's any doubt about that at all. And in fact, if you listened to his comments, I mean, he made it absolutely clear that he does understand it. He's perfectly well aware of it. He's also perfectly well aware of who's backing his opponents within Hungary and what the project is there. And I mean, he's under no doubt at all. But about Ursula's position, about the EU position, her speech, even as it's intended to attack Orban, is a confession of nervousness and weakness. And it's come just directly after statements from Macron, who, remember, whatever else he is, the one thing Macron has been consistent about is that he's a fervid European. His solution to every problem, as he always says, is more Europe. Anyway, Macron says that the European Union might not survive in its existing form for a further 3 years. That it's, living dangerously. And in that same article in the London Times that I sent to you, it basically says the same thing. It says that it's not what the European Union risks is not that it will formally collapse, but that the central institutions of the EU will start to become so discredited that people will begin to work around them. The various member states will start to begin to work around them. We start to make decisions that basically ignore the edicts from Brussels, and that they will agree with each other shifts in policy, which basically take no account of the EU institutions, which as a result will lose relevance. Well, that's just one possible way that it can play out. I'm not sure that that is possible, by the way, but anyway, that's what he's saying. But the point is, with the failure of Project Ukraine, with the economic crisis in Europe, which, remember, is deeply connected to Project Ukraine, the cutting off of the energy links to Russia, the disruption of the trade links, the extreme centralization that's taken place within the EU. With all of that, we're starting to see questions being asked about the viability of the whole project. Ursula, state the future of the EU on Project Ukraine. Project Ukraine has failed. And there is now serious talk amongst serious people. Macron, maybe not such a serious person, but this writer on the London Times, a very serious person. A serious talk for the first time really, that with the failure of Project Ukraine, Project EU might fail as well.
Yeah, she bet it all on Zelensky. Absolutely. But actually, Orban in his speech actually said that the EU economy is collapsing because of Project Ukraine and being cut off from Russian energy, which is something that no one in Europe dares to admit, or in the UK, to be quite honest. In the EU or the UK, they talk about recession, they talk about economic difficulties, they talk about inflation, but they never admit that it was because of Project Ukraine and because they cut off Russia from Europe.
Absolutely.
They never admit that.
Nor can they admit it. I mean, if Ursula went out and admitted it, she is going to inevitably provoke a crisis within Europe, because at that point people will say, well, look, you led us into this. Why are you still where you are? And maybe everything that you have done and everything that you stand for, this extreme centralization that you've imposed on us, is something that we need to dismantle. So they will never admit it. Whereas Orban, who was hostile, was at least skeptical about the whole thing from the outset, he is able to say it. Now, some very wise man, and I forget which one, actually said that, in the empire of lies, stating the truth is a revolutionary act. Orban is able to state the truth. He stated it. He's done it within the European Parliament. He said it in Ursula's presence. You could call it a revolutionary act.
Yeah, just a final thought, and we'll wrap up the video. The one thing that the European Union is fairly good at, it's getting the election results that they want.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have to try a couple of times to get those results, but eventually they do get them, and that's what they're going to try with Orban, and that's what they're going to try with this opposition party, which I believe did get 30% in the European elections.
Yes.
And which is a very strong result for a new party, which is very aligned with Ursula. So I think that is the big threat to Orban, and that's going to be the play. That's going to be the playbook that Ursula puts in place. Well, remove Orban in the next elections.
This is what her speech to the European Parliament was all about. It's in effect preparing the ground to support this party in the Hungarian elections in order to remove Orban from the scene. Because Orban standing up in the European Parliament, telling the truth about who has caused the crisis in Europe, is something which, of course, she cannot allow. Because you cannot allow the truth to come through. Because if you do, and if the truth is widely heard, then, as I said her whole position, and that of the EU centre collapses.
Yeah, it all comes down to the Hungarian people, I guess, and how they vote in the next elections. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, we will leave it there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what we are wearing in this video. The link is in the description box down below to our shop. Take care.